On Wednesday, Afghanistan launched a series of drone strikes at targets in Pakistan, a few days after Pakistan had launched its own airstrikes on Afghanistan. This is the latest in a long series of skirmishes between the two countries, and threatens to upend a fragile semi-ceasefire that was agreed in March. So in this video, we're going to explain why the conflict has restarted, and why, intriguingly, Russia is apparently taking more of an interest. Russia once liked to think of itself as a major regional power. Perhaps it still does, but with resources depleting and attention still focused on Ukraine, the country's broader sphere of influence is shrinking. So in the latest issue of our magazine, we unpack how Russia's influence in their sphere is slowly slipping away. That's just some of the 80 pages in the magazine, because there's more to too long than you'd expect. Purchase your copy by clicking the link in the description. Now, we've gone through this quite a few times in previous videos, but for any new viewers out there, let's start by explaining how Pakistan and the Taliban got into this mess. Until recently, the Taliban and Pakistan were actually pretty good mates. Pakistan actually supported the Taliban and the wider Mujahideen in their fight against the Soviets in the 80s, and was one of just 3 countries, along with Saudi Arabia and the UAE, to recognize the Taliban as the legitimate government of Afghanistan when they conquered Kabul in 1996. Pakistan even maintained relations with the Taliban during the US occupation of Afghanistan, which began in 2001. This irritated the US, but Pakistan was unwilling to cut ties with the Taliban, largely because Pakistan always suspected that the Taliban might eventually return to power, and wanted to keep them on side to prevent the Taliban from hosting terror groups that might attack Pakistan, including, most notably, the Pakistani Taliban, or TTP, who've waged a violent insurgency against the Pakistani state since 2007. Unfortunately for Pakistan, when the Taliban returned to power in 2021, they made basically no effort to stop terror groups, including not just the TTP, but also other groups like the Baloch Liberation Front, from operating out of Afghanistan. And terror attacks inside Pakistan restarted with increasing frequency. According to the Center for Research and Security Studies, 2024 and 2025 were the 2 deadliest years for Pakistani security personnel for nearly a decade, with over 1,200 fatalities. In response, Pakistan carried out intermittent strikes on TTP targets inside Afghanistan. There was an escalation in October when Pakistan launched a series of airstrikes on targets in Kabul and Kandahar, signaling that they would hold the Taliban directly responsible for attacks by terror groups operating out of Afghanistan. Qatar was able to negotiate a last-minute ceasefire, but it all fell apart earlier this year after yet another suicide bombing. Pakistan retaliated by carrying out a series of airstrikes against what it said were terrorist training camps in Afghanistan. The Taliban then retaliated by launching an offensive against Pakistani positions along the border, and then Pakistan retaliated again by launching massive airstrikes on Taliban strongholds in both Kabul and Kandahar. Another ceasefire was negotiated in March, this time with help from Turkey, but it always looked fragile, and there have been intermittent skirmishes in the months since, culminating in the escalation of violence we saw earlier this week. As we've argued in previous videos, the fundamental problem here is that even if they wanted to, and it's not clear that they do, the Taliban just cannot actually stop the various terror groups operating inside Afghanistan. Not only do they lack the state capacity, a 2023 UN report, for instance, estimated that more than 20 terror groups operate in Afghanistan, which puts quite a lot on the Taliban's proverbial plate, but the Taliban itself has lots of factions within it. So even if the main factions agreed to Pakistan's demands, other factions would probably continue to cooperate with their favoured terror groups. The two countries have thus been stuck in a sort of escalatory cycle. A terror attack happens in Pakistan, Pakistan demands that Afghanistan crack down on the relevant terror groups, Afghanistan say no, Pakistan escalates in a futile attempt to get the Taliban to take their concerns more seriously, and the cycle repeats. This is why in previous videos we've always been pessimistic about the prospect of a lasting or sustainable peace. However, something has changed in recent months that might merit some cautious optimism, namely Russia's re-engagement with the Taliban. After becoming the first and only country to formally recognize the Taliban last year, in May, and this flew slightly under the radar, Russia took things a step further and signed a military cooperation agreement with Afghanistan, apparently mostly focused on repairing the Taliban's Soviet-era weapon systems. There are 2 reasons to think that this new security pact, and Moscow's engagement with the Taliban more generally, could help encourage peace between Afghanistan and Pakistan. The first is that it could deter Pakistan from taking too drastic military action against Afghanistan in the future. The Taliban made this explicit when they signed the agreement, with their acting defense minister claiming that Pakistan would soon no longer dare to attack Afghan territory. The second is that Russia will presumably be able to pressure the Taliban into doing more against the various terror groups operating in its territory. This isn't just because Russia wants to curry favour with Pakistan. It's also because Russia itself is worried about Islamic State Khorasan, or ISKP, which, as you might remember, was responsible for the 2024 Moscow concert hall terror attack, and could use Afghan territory as a sort of operating base. More generally, there is some evidence that Russia wants to restore its prestige and influence in Central Asia, which has waned since the war in Ukraine, in part because other post-Soviet states worry about Putin's imperial ambitions, but also because the Russian military's lackluster performance has undermined its appeal as a security partner. However, as we say, there has been some evidence in recent months that Russia wants to re-engage with the region, by emphasizing the fact that even if the Russian military isn't all it was once cracked up to be, Russia remains the only viable security guarantor. Early this week, for instance, Russia has announced that they'll be expanding their military presence in Tajikistan, where Russian troops have been deployed as part of a collective security treaty organization mission to crack down on militant activity emanating from Afghanistan. For context, the Collective Security Treaty Organization, or CSTO, is an alliance centered around the Mutual Defense Agreement between Russia and 5 post-Soviet states, Belarus, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, which was originally envisioned as Russia's answer to NATO. The CSTO looked like it had essentially become defunct after Putin's invasion of Ukraine, both because other post-Soviet states just didn't trust Putin, but also because Russia essentially failed to respond when Armenia triggered the CSTO's Mutual Defense Clause during its war with Azerbaijan in 2023. The fact that Russia is taking the CSTO deployment in Tajikistan seriously suggests that Russia might be interested in reviving its role as a regional security guarantor, and might thus be willing to both pressure and maybe even help the Taliban sort out its domestic security situation, which is really the only way Afghanistan was ever going to have peaceful relations with Pakistan. And if you're thinking that that was a lot to take on top of the thousands of other stories happening around the globe right now, you're not wrong. You might even feel powerless in today's climate. And we promise you, you're not alone in that. If, like us, you're looking for evidence that people can still make a difference, we know exactly the place to go. And that place is Planet Wild. Planet Wild is a community-based nature protection organization that is passionate about helping our planet, one step at a time. The power we have as a collective really shines bright through Planet Wild, as your membership directly funds a mission every month to give our planet a helping hand. These missions span from ensuring the ongoing survival of endangered animals like the grizzly bear, to cleaning up rivers before plastic reaches the ocean, and even rewilding Europe's last ancient forest. And with Planet Wild, you can know exactly what you're funding. They don't leave you wondering where your money is going, because they document all of these missions in video reports here on YouTube, so we can see exactly what we've helped to achieve. The impact we've made will be right before our eyes. Planet Wild is for those who are tired of words and want to see action. So if you want to join the growing community of people committed to actually making a difference, you can do so for as little as $6 a month, and every contribution matters, big or small. And if that hasn't convinced you, then the first 100 people to sign up using the code NEWSGLOBAL6 will get their first month's membership paid for entirely by us. That's how passionate we are about Planet Wild. So by joining today, you'll immediately be able to make a difference, and even see the impact you're having in less than 30 days on YouTube right here. You can cancel your membership at any time, so there's absolutely no catch. Just an easy, remarkable way to create real and lasting change. If you want to see them in action, then check out their latest mission protecting grizzly bears and other species by building the largest wildlife corridor in America.